Evening, Happy New Year everyone, this is Southern Manx. We've got a lot to get through today, really exciting podcast because there's been some massive news over the last month or so with Man United. In the studio today, resident guest Mark Powell, how are you?
Evening all.
Our Portuguese football expert Orlando Carrera.
Boa noite, how are you? Yes.
And Chelmsford football correspondent Joe JP Perkins. Happy New Year all.
Happy New Year lads, good to be back.
Brilliant. Well, like I say, we've got a lot to get through. Obviously, everyone knows the big story, Sanchez. We'll definitely be covering that off. So hope you enjoy this episode of Southern Manx by the fans, for the fans. Okay, so part one then, obviously the massive news that's come out of Old Trafford over the last couple of days. News we were kind of expecting is the Sanchez / Mkhitaryan deal. I'll throw this over to you, Mark, first of all. Happy?
Yeah, not the signing that I guess when you're looking at the side is an immediate hole to fill. I think we'd agree, looking at the formation of the side, where we've been at our best. It's been in the 4-3-3. So I was expecting that we might push for a central midfielder. That being said, Sanchez, when a player like Sanchez comes available, you have to buy him, I'm afraid. So I'm happy. He's a top player. I think his numbers, his work rate, what he brings to the side. So yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit sad for Mkhitaryan. I think he would have brought something to the side, but he hasn't kicked on. He's had his opportunity. He's had his fair share of time out of the side also. But yeah, as a United fan, you have to be happy from this deal, I think. Yeah,
and JP, who do you think has got the better end of the bargain, the better deal? Because if we believe reports, then it was no fee. Straight swap.
Yep.
Mkhitaryan for Sanchez. So, who do you think's got the better end of the deal?
Listen, I know we're all United fans. We're doing a Man United podcast, but I also like to think that we're not unduly biased. Having said that, I think when you look at the numbers, as Mark touched on there, when you look at the numbers and you compare the two players, I don't think there's any comparison. I feel a bit sad as well, the same way. I feel a bit sorry for Mkhitaryan. Seeing him on Instagram in an Arsenal kit, like training, it nearly made me cry the other morning, I've got to be honest. But no, I think we've got the better end of the deal. I think he's a better player all round. I think he can play in any of the positions that Mickey played in. And, they're talking about the money, but essentially, I mean, we've got someone we valued about 35 million for someone in the open market. You take the contractual situation out of it, we could have paid, Neymar went for 225, didn't he? So, I mean, Coutinho 145 million. I think we've got the better end of the deal, and I think we've done bloody well to get it. And I think Woodward should be applauded. He was sort of lambasted when he first started his tenure at United about getting deals over the line.
Yeah.
We seem to be tipping big clubs left, right, and centre to the top players now. So yeah, I think we've got the better end of the deal, and I'm more than happy with it. It's
interesting what you say about Woodward and the deal, because everything, as soon as United's interest came out and then City's apparent non-interest or no deal, suddenly it was Pep versus money created by the media, and I just thought it was almost as if Manchester United was no longer a big club. But strange. Orlando, from one number 7 to another, is this finally the player fit enough to wear the shirt? We've had a few non-starters.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's not somebody who I think won't be able to handle the pressure, somebody who won't understand the responsibility and what it means to wear the number 7 shirt for United. I know we had a bit of musical numbers in the summer with Martial and Ibrahimovic and Lukaku chopping and changing numbers. I said it, I think, between us before, that the only person I could see coming back and taking the 7 shirt off him would be the annual Ronaldo rumour if he came back, which again I think is unlikely. So even if we got maybe some of our other targets, a Bale, a Griezmann, or a Dybala, anybody of that ilk, I don't think they would come in and command or even demand the 7 shirt. So I think that's his now. For the time that he's at United. Gives us that variety, gives us that versatility, doesn't he? Can play anywhere across the front three, behind the forward, and indeed in the forward position. Ibrahimovic has not been the same since he's come back, which is almost to be expected, really. Having suffered the same injury as Ibrahimovic and going through a rehabilitation process myself as we speak, is a very, very difficult injury to come back from. Obviously, that's his job and not mine, and his job is to get fit every single day to come back from the injury. But from what I read, I've done a lot of studies and things like that, it can take some time, anything up to 9 months, and he's come back in record time, 6 months, and I think that's maybe one of the reasons why he's got injured, and it's as much the mental injury as anything else. So Sanchez coming in can maybe provide some real competition for Lukaku, an alternative option in that kind of forward position, as well as course, as we mentioned, playing anywhere behind in the front three.
Brilliant. And Mark, on this show we love talking tactics, formations, and I myself have been critical of people like Lingard. I think going back to our opening podcast in the summer, but it seems to be, once the Sanchez deal got over the line, the next question seemed to be from everyone, well, where does he play? I mean, I'm sure City would have faced the same question. It's probably even more of a conundrum if he had gone to City. Where does he get in that front three? But where do you see him fitting in our front 3/4?
I think it's a big test for Jose now, because I think most United fans would agree that Anthony Martial is a potential world beater on his day. I think he's shown it. His finishing, his dribbling, is remarkable at times. He's adding a bit more consistency now. He's got 9 goals. You've got Lingard, who's turned on a bit of form. And some spectacular goals to that. And Lukaku, despite kind of lambasted on social media, his numbers stack up as well over the course of the season. And he had something. The goal at Burnley was an example of that, where his hold-up play and his link-up is getting better. So you probably would say it's going to be the usual suspects like Mata, who's at risk.
Yep.
I think Rashford, I love the boy, but his form hasn't been great. And when you're looking at options, an out of form Rashford limits those. So either way, another forward is going to be welcome. So I'd probably, to answer your original question, probably say I would like to see him on the right hand side of a 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. But I think he'll probably sort of drift in between 10 and on the right. I hope that he doesn't come in for Martial. That will be a complete waste of time in my book.
Yeah, I agree, and unfortunately I do think it will be, in my opinion, be Mata that misses out, and I don't know what that quite means for his contract. We've got the 1 year extension that we can trigger or not coming up in the summer, but I do think it'll be Mata misses out. It was interesting when we signed him because, like I said, people were trying to guess where he would play. And I just thought it was such a irrelevant argument, because it was almost going back to the 90s where you had 11 players and 12 was the sub. It's a squad game nowadays, and like you say, Rashford's out of form at the moment, but he will come back into form when Martial drops out. And if Lukaku doesn't pick up his form again, Sanchez can play through the middle. Joe, it's January. Everyone loves the transfer window. Obviously, we've done big business. There's big business going on all around the world. Do you think we'll be busy again in this month, or do you reckon we'll wait till the summer?
I think there's a small possibility. If I'm honest, Nick, I think it's more likely that we will leave it to the summer now. I did read a rumour today about the young lad at Nice. Seri, is it?
Yeah.
That it looked like he was going to go to Barcelona in the summer, and that they pulled out of that at the last minute. And he's obviously like a sort of competitive central midfielder. That looked like there could be some merit to that, but I don't think he's going to do anything else in this window. obviously we've got players' contracts running out, Fellaini's, Carrick's, as you mentioned, Matters as well. I think it will probably be more sort of looking towards the summer and doing some work on identifying who we want and start the ball rolling for the summer.
Yeah, I've seen a rumour again on the Seri one. Apparently it's out of us and City again for that one. But then they're also linked with Fred at Shakhtar Donetsk and Laporte at Bilbao as Pep's long-term replacements for Kompany and Yaya Toure. But I think for United, I've heard central midfielder, a left-footed centre-back, I think, as well. We were in for. So I don't know what to expect. But if you were going to argue which player we need, is still a central midfielder for me, a ball playing centre mid. But yeah, we'll see. Fellaini and Carrick is interesting, both out of contract in the summer. Obviously, you said Carrick's going to retire.
Join the coaching staff.
Great move for him.
He's not kicked a ball, is he, really, this
But
season?
Fellaini is still one that's undecided. I've heard we've already triggered extensions or 1 year options for a few of the players, like Shaw, Young,
Blind
and Herrera. So I think the question marks might still be on Mata, Fellaini, two Moyes boys. So we'll see.
Yeah, the Moyes boys. Okay, well, all in all then, lads, I think generally a pretty good week on the transfer front for United. I take it we're all happy that Sanchez is a red.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and really enjoyed his piano playing as well. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And as a boy, he used to like climbing trees, so they gave him the nickname the Squirrel.
Nice.
Interesting fact of the day.
If you don't fancy Alexis or Sanchez on your shirt, Squirrel.
Squirrel.
Okay, so let's talk about recent results and the festive period. Orlando, I guess you can say it was a bit of a mixed bag over the festive period.
I think, to be honest, not just United, but having watched quite a few games over Christmas, the quality was really poor all round. I mean, it wasn't a great watch, and on top of that, we didn't get the points that we should have done. Obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but if we'd have picked up, let's say not 3 points, but even 7 points, 2 wins and a draw, then we'd only be 7 points behind City rather than what we are now, which is 12, 15, whatever it is now. So we'd be very much still in the title race, despite the fact that we did lose that game against Man City. I know it's easy to say now, as they say, but that to me is probably what is most disappointing. I think that is where, when we look back at the end of the season, and unfortunately, if City do go on to win the league, which looks like they will, I think we'll look back and say that's an area where we really fell down. The Burnley game, I watched that. They scored 2 goals from, I think, 2 chances. I mean, we were all over them. When we went 2-2, I really did think we were going to go on and get the 3-2, but it never quite materialised. Can't really say the same for the Leicester game. You can't really afford to concede a goal like that in the last minute. To me, there's no real excuse for it. It's just a lack of concentration at the back there for the Maguire goal. And for the Southampton game, I think I can pass you over to Nick for that one, because you were there, Nick, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday to me. 0-0 drab against Southampton. Shocker. I mean, with my football manager hat on here, and I often sit there on my own talking to myself thinking Christmas is crucial. If we get through Christmas here on here,
and Jose's, you're normally so good at
that's it. Negotiating Christmas and Easter, where the games come thick and fast. That for me, win and loses you titles, and I don't think we managed that one particularly well. But I suppose we're in a bit of form now. I mean, we've had 4 clean sheets on the row, 5. Sorry, if you include the recent Burnley result. I guess things did pick up New Year's Day, Mark, with that away trip to Everton and in particular Tony Marshall.
Yeah, but no surprise to me, because we went 4-3-3 and we allowed Pogba licence, and he was unplayable on the day. I love the goals from Martial
Especially
and Lingard, but some of the stuff that he was doing was you couldn't touch him. I know people will say it was against Everton or it was against Stoke or it was against whoever, but the fact is when you give him that licence, the boy can do what he wants. He can be what he wants. And it was evident. And I was just reflecting there on that Christmas period, Leicester, Burnley, Southampton in particular. I was thinking what was wrong about our play in those times. I think we had plenty of chances collectively, but without ever really looking like we were ever going to win any of those games. Obviously, Burnley, we started poorly, so to get a point is fine. Leicester, we were up, but didn't close it out. And Southampton, we couldn't break them down. You compare that to the Everton game, it was opposite. Second half especially.
Yeah, Everton game.
But we cut them to ribbons, really, and I think that's allowed us to kick on. And although the system has changed back a little bit more, I think we've taken confidence from that. Pogba is dictating play a little bit better. Some of the passing he's doing is more impressive, and we're just playing a little bit more freedom, I think, since Christmas, and hopefully that can continue.
And yeah, I would look at that Everton away game as a typical Jose performance. Kind of, we didn't look like losing that game, and that not many teams can go to Goodison Park and come away and say we didn't look like losing. But do you think, Joe, that Jose doesn't get the credit he deserves, or is the criticism in the media about the way we play, is it justified? Because we've all got friends of other teams, and some of them know a bit about football, some of them like to think they know about football, but United do get a lot of criticism for the way they play. But
Park the bus, Man United.
Yeah, we're the second top goal scorers in the league. I think we've got the highest amount of clean sheets. De Gea's already on 14, I believe, clean sheets. Do you think some of this criticism, or is it just a case of what the other side of Manchester are doing?
I think it's a bit of both, Nick, to be honest. I think it starts off from the fact we're Manchester United, and we're thought of in a certain way and we're playing a certain way, and a lot more is expected of us in the first place. I think that's why we get the criticism we get. Secondly, what's happening on the other side of the city this season, whether we like it or not, the way they've played for the majority of the season, and sort of the quality of their play has been undeniable. I just can't help but feel that with Jose and the way he plays, what has ever been won consistently with a team that can just attack. And I know that City have defended well this season at points or whatever. I just feel that when it clicks for us, and it will click at some point, we've already got that foundation at the back. We can already defend. We can keep clean sheets at will. I just feel like once that clicks, and it might be a player coming in, it might be Sanchez, it might be a change in formation again, whatever it is, I just can't help but feel that when it clicks, we've got that base and we can go on. You don't win the Champions League by being able to attack and sort of defence being secondary very often. I just think that whatever it is, whatever the catalyst is, we will kick on at some point and we'll be competing with them at the top there.
Okay, and I suppose Orlando, over the Christmas period, with this mixed bag of results, one real shining festive light, if you will, one real Christmas cracker was probably the emergence of Jesse Lingard, or Jay Lings.
AKA Messi Lingard.
Oh, big.
Yeah, no, he's been brilliant.
Millie Rock.
Absolutely brilliant. I've always quite liked Lingard, to be honest with you. Never said it out loud. Get that one within. No, I'm joking. No, he's always one of those, wasn't he? I think Fergie's been quoted on record as saying, watch what he's going to be like around about the age of 25. Lo and behold, the great visionary that he is, Jay Lings has been doing some cracking vines and what they call boomerangs and whatever they do nowadays on social media, as well as pinging them top bins. He's got a cracking bird as well, so at the moment he can do no wrong, the lad. Keep doing what he's doing. My only concern with him would be, obviously, he's not what you'd call maybe a star name. He's not a Sanchez, he's not a Lukaku, he's not a Pogba. So he's probably the first name that's easy to be either forfeited from the starting 11 or he's going to be the first one who's going to be subbed off. And I think for the fact that he probably doesn't kick up too much of a fuss, he's a club man, he's a United man. You can see he's generally happy there. He's on, if we're led to believe, 100 bag a week. So
best pals with Rashford and
exactly.
Pogba,
so he's got a good life. He's enjoying it. Brilliant. But it's a really good option to have, and he has been keeping, obviously until his departure, Mkhitaryan out of the side on merit, not just on having the better dab.
In Mkhitaryan's best position as well, because
absolutely.
Lingard's been lined up generally as a number 10,
and he scored some cracking goals, some real contenders for goal of the month each month. So yeah, I think he's been brilliant. Just going back a little bit to Joe's last point there about having can't just have a really good attacking side of things. You've got to, you have to have a good defence. If we look back to some of our best sides, the Vidic Ferdinand combination with Evra and Neville, Bruce and Pallister, Sylvester. Not joking. We go back to the days of Stam. We've always had in our most successful eras of those 2, 3, 4 year periods where we've really dominated domestically and abroad, domestically and in the Champions League as it were. We've always built that on a foundation of a solid defence and solid goalkeeper. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right there, Joe. Can we say we've had that post Fergie? I can't say that we've had one single defender in any position which I would say has been outstanding on those kind of levels, which of those previous people that we've mentioned. So I think once we kind of get that, I think Baye's got the potential to do it. But once
Phil Jones.
Joneser. Yeah, I think once we can get that sorted and we aren't just converting failed wingers into fullbacks, then we might start to really get somewhere. But the disappearing man, the forgotten man, Luke Shaw is back in contention, getting a good run of games. So I think once we're clear of injuries and players can rediscover that form, we hold ourselves in good stead, really.
I think Bailly is we need to get him back in the side.
Iceman.
But one thing that does get a bit overlooked, or because of the way City are doing things at the moment, is Sterling's a world beater now. That's because of Pep. John Stones is a world beater. That's because of Pep. It's all since he's come in. But don't overlook someone like Phil Jones and Jesse Lingard. I think Jones, if you watch his recent performances when he's in the side, he has been good, very good. He
started the season fantastically well as well, didn't he?
Yeah, and hopefully he can stay clear of injuries. Same with Lingard. Obviously, he has got someone that has been... Something's changed with him. You can tell that, the way he's playing. He has an adding in product to all the dancing and potential. So I think... I honestly think there is a negative perception around Jose. He kills football, the negative style of football, blah, 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 all of that. It's all just noise, I think.
It's the media, isn't it? Because Jose, when he first came here, he was, the press is, they loved him because there's always a story to write every other day. It was glamorous. There'd never been anything done like that before. I generally think I'm the special one, etc., etc. But since he's come back and he's a little bit more serious these days, there isn't so much wonderful things they can write about him. They have seemed to have turned on him. And he is always the scapegoat. There is always a negative connotation in and around any Mourinho club. That wasn't just us, but at Chelsea as well. He's lost the dressing room. He's done really bad thing. With the Eva Carnero thing and everything. So I think that is just now his role, if you like, in the football pantomime. Villain. Pep, wherever he's been, has always been the golden goose, the golden child, and can do no wrong. You'll get a few people either way or disagree with both sides of those camps, but generally, if it was a storyline, Jose's the villain and Pep's the good guy, and that's just something that we have to face. You have to look deeper into the stats and go, yeah, you're right, we are top goal scorers, we are keeping clean sheets. Okay, we're not, the buccaneering, swashbuckling wingers and stuff that maybe we were before, in other eras. But for the same token, in those other eras, there weren't 6 teams fighting for 4 Champions League spots or even the league title. So, we have to be realistic as well with, what we're up against.
Yeah, and I think...
Sorry, go on.
No, go on, Jack, go on.
I was just going to add to that I think that's a really good point. It's definitely true. And I think with Jose, he's almost made a rod for his own back in a way. That there are positives to the way that he behaves and the way he does things, and there are negatives. And one of the negatives is that he's tarred with this brush now, sort of the way he behaves and the way that we play, or like you said, whatever side you might imagine. You've only got to take the incident the other day, I don't know if you saw it, but in contrast for me, when Klopp turned around and sort of had a go at a fan, if that was Jose, because his reputation precedes him, he would have been banned for 4 games. Because it was Klopp, everyone laughed and thought, oh, what a character.
Similar thing with the Nathan Redmond thing, wasn't it, as well, with Pep Guardiola?
Pep,
he was, that was how that was perceived as, there were quite a few areas of the media who did, criticise him for it, but I'm sure it would have been far worse if it had been Jose.
I think, just to round off this topic, I think the Golden Goose was quoted then, and the media loves shiny new toys, and when you've got people like Pep Guardiola, and then you've got Conte who came in last year, and then you've got Klopp who's still relatively new. Jose's not the new kid anymore, and I think, is it from Batman where like you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain?
Yeah.
And he's probably just been around now where he's the villain. But we love you, Jose, and keep doing what you're doing, because I think there has been some progression for sure.
Yeah, and Sean Custis, I think, just a quick shout out to him for his positive words.
Big up, Sean.
Cheers, Sean.
Well done, Sean.
Okay, part 3 then. Let's look forward to some of the upcoming fixtures then, starting with the away trip in the FA Cup to Yeovil. JP, I'll come to you first. Obviously, we played him a couple of years ago. Herrera scoring a great goal. How do you see this one going?
I think he'll make a few changes. I think we'll still put a relatively strong side up, but I think there'll be a few changes. I don't think we're going to get to see Alexis in this one. I think he'll make his first appearance against Spurs. I think we'll go there. We'll do a professional job. I think we'll come away with the win. I don't think there'll be a replay from this one.
Yeah, okay, and that leads me on what's going to be my next question, Orlando. Joe doesn't think we'll see Alexis Sanchez. How about yourself?
I don't know. I mean, he's done quite a lot of his media sort of publicity, PR stuff, hasn't he, in the last few days. Still got a few days before the actual fixture on Saturday. So, is it Saturday or Friday? Friday, isn't it? Sorry, Friday night.
Can he do it on a cold, wet, windy night in Yeovil?
Well, hopefully we will get to see him. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, does Jose think that maybe we'll save him for Tottenham? That's a fixture to go into, isn't it? Coming from Arsenal to Man United, and your first fixture is away at Spurs. He's not exactly going to get a warm reception, is he? Do we want to be playing down in Yeovil when the weather's been the way it is? Then does he want to keep him wrapped up in cotton wool a bit before that game? I don't know. I'd like to see him, at least if it's for a 20-minute appearance. Make his debut just to calm his nerves and just get on the pitch with the other boys just before the Tottenham game. But I don't know. I mean, realistically, this is a good chance for us to win a cup now. Champions League will be dependent on a favourable draw and what other teams come out. So the FA Cup now, I think, realistically, is going to be our chance at some domestic silverware, isn't it?
Okay, and then I suppose, Mark, I mean, being a former fullback myself, one of the highlights of the Christmas period was seeing Luke Shaw come back into the team. And I know he got an extended run because of Ashley Young's suspension for his misdemeanour against Southampton. He wasn't involved in our last game away at Burnley. Ashley Young actually had a fairly good game. Do you see him coming back in for Yeovil? How does Luke Shaw fit into this team, if he does at all?
I think Luke Shaw has been very good since he's come back in the side. I think he's played a lot of games in a row, which he probably hasn't done for quite some time. And I think Ashley Young's form was pretty good before he got suspended, and probably would have kept his position had he not been suspended. So I think Luke Shaw is the long-term answer. I think Jose's recent comments has been very positive about Luke Shaw. It's not many better left-backs you can find right now. Turns out that Ashley Young is actually one of them. But I think you'd probably play him down at Yeovil, or you might go with experience for Ashley Young. I don't think it really matters for the short term. I think as long as Shaw is kind of kept along and gets his fair share of games and he can keep learning and keep getting fit, then there's no problem really. For a bit of rotation at fullback, I don't think is a big problem.
Okay, and with Spurs in mind, JP, I mean, managers use this competition now as a chance to rotate. I guess there's some people in the squad that haven't played a lot of football recently. I'm thinking the likes of your Daley Blinds, who I don't even know where you fit him in anymore. Herrera hasn't played a lot. Fellaini's just coming back from injury. Do you imagine there'll be a host of changes on Friday? Bear in mind we've got Spurs on Wednesday.
I think one thing I like about what Jose does is he will make changes, but I don't think he often makes sort of wholesale changes. So I think there's the opportunity for one or two of those guys to play, but I think a few of the regular guys will play as well. So I do think, there's an opportunity for the likes of those you just mentioned to get a start, but I think sort of the main lads will play as well. I think Pogba will play. I think he'll start with Lukaku and just change a few of the guys in and around them.
Yeah, and Orlando, just coming back, she made a good point just a minute ago, and I've made a note of it here. Is the FA Cup our only realistic chance of silverware this year?
I think, obviously domestically we are unlikely to win the league unless there's a complete capitulation from Man City. And obviously in the Champions League, Seville is a draw which is not an easy draw, certainly, but it's one that you'd think with Jose's experience and the players that we've got that we should be able to get through over the course of two legs. And then it's just a case of, who we'd get and then who knocks who out. If you get a favourable quarter-final draw, by the time you get through to the semi-finals, there's only a few teams that you can play mathematically left. And again, you've got PSG playing Real Madrid. One of those two get through and then they face a Barcelona or a Bayern, one of those. You could be left with a quite a favourable draw. And then it's semi-final, you win that two-legger enough. So you never know. But I mean, with me, I think Jose's got that pedigree in European football. We love those big nights under the lights. So I'm not saying it's something that we've got a very good chance of, but at the same time I wouldn't be surprised. So to answer your question, I think realistically the FA Cup, we've got to take it seriously. We are fortunate that we're on a Friday, which means we've got quite a few days before the Spurs game. It's not like a 48-hour turnaround. We've got a few days to recover, so he can still go fairly strong and not have to rotate the whole team. As Joe mentioned, he can make maybe 2, 3, 4 changes and still keep it strong.
Just quickly as well on the Champions League, because I think it's a good point. Sanchez
eligible, isn't he?
Is eligible to play,
yeah,
which I think is a big boost.
Massive plus.
In those big games, you've got a player like him, fresh, or not fresh, but he's ready to play and add something that we didn't have in the group stages. So I think what I mean, I don't want to get carried away here. Obviously, we won the European trophy last season, so we have got that experience under our belts of going in, getting something away, and obviously the teams, different calibre of teams in the Champions League, but it's still a good habit, it's a winning habit, isn't it? So let's see. I think
absolutely.
Let's take every game as it comes. Get over Seville first, and then see what happens.
Yeah.
Just on the Sevilla game as well, lads. It'll be 60 years since the Munich air disaster, so hopefully they can go out there and do their memory proud.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, Joe, but does anyone remember the game where it was the 50-year anniversary?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Sure.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, remember it well.
So, I actually had a car crash that day as well, so it was actually a bad day. But, I heard, Mark, in the week, a couple of reports from various journalists, various podcasts, various sources that people, as an outside tip for the Champions League, people fancy United over, say, a Chelsea or a City purely because of the way Jose plays. So it's funny in the Premier League that it's not good enough for the Premier League, but in the Champions League, they could win it because of Jose.
Well, I think the defences in the Premier League are not great. There's some terrible goals that gets conceded. The Champions League is naturally tighter in my book. I think it's because they're set up better. I think they're...
You don't want to lose the first... You don't want to be out of it on the first leg, do you? The first legs are cagey.
You can't afford to... I mean, the groups are a little bit different because, you've got plenty of time to make it back if you have a bad game here or there. But when it gets to the knockouts, you don't have that flexibility. What's going to be interesting is the amount of English clubs still left in those final stages. I wouldn't bet against them. Someone getting drawn against each other.
Yeah, they will do the next round.
Soon.
They can't
sooner or later.
Next round.
I think it's almost the start of a new cycle. Where one of the top European leagues seems to dominate the Champions League, over several years. I think it's been Spain's turn for a while. I feel like the next few years, we could have a lot of teams getting to the latter stages of the competition.
Yeah, agree. When we go back to that period of Chelsea, Liverpool, United, I think Arsenal were in and around, but it was kind of usual suspects for...
We had 3 or 4 semi-finalists one year, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, epitomised by the United-Chelsea final.
Yeah, there was also a year, wasn't there, where 3 out of the 4 semi-finalists were English, I seem to remember. But I can't remember what year that was.
Yeah, so, Arsenal, Chelsea, United, wasn't it?
Yeah, so there we have it, listeners. United, you heard it here first. United are going to win the FA Cup, the Champions League, the X Factor, and Dancing on Ice. Okay, part 4. Looking forward to that massive fixture. A week today, Wednesday, the 31st of January, away at Spurs, or away at Wembley, if you like. Massive game. Spurs have had a little bit of a wobble, I'd say, this weekend, Mark. Before that fixture, I was looking at the Man United Spurs game, or Spurs Man United game, thinking, if we get a result, a draw or win, I would say that's us guaranteed top 4. Mm-hmm. Now after that result, I kind of feel semi comfortable. What's your thinking?
Yeah, well, we had that conversation. I mean, I watched the Spurs Southampton game, and they huffed and they puffed, but they never really looked like getting the win. And I agree. I think they'd hit a bad bit of form. And I was thinking they're going to recover at some point. But previous to that, I thought they're going to push us. We're going to need to watch over our backs here. Now we're 8 points clear. Like I say, as long as we don't get beat, we should. They're 5th place. If you count Arsenal out of getting in the top 4, that should all but wrap up top 4 in my book. I don't see us. Famous last words. Don't see us having a drop of form that dramatically from now until the end of the season, especially not the way Jose sets up, and especially not after the Christmas break. You'd expect there's going to be some lessons learnt from that run of games. So yeah, to answer, I think come out of there without a defeat, and top 4 should be at very worst.
And Orlando, Harry Kane gets a lot of praise, and rightly so. I do think he's a class act. But did the weekend's game at Southampton kind of say something else about Spurs, that if Eriksen doesn't play, or if he does play and you stop Eriksen, do you stop Spurs at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I was interested in... What interested me about the Spurs game, I was just double-checking the lineup again to make sure I wasn't seeing things. But yeah, Dembele back in the side, and I think he was something which they were missing, but he came off again. And he seems to be their kind of, I don't know, you could maybe like a Pogba figure if you like, maybe like a playmaker from a bit deeper. But they don't seem to, for me, the transition to Harry Kane sometimes can be a little slow. He seems insistent with Sissoko. To me, it doesn't seem like a Pochettino signing whatsoever. It was a Daniel Levy signing that he thought he had, 30 mil burning a hole in his pocket and wanted to spend it. To me, Spurs had a real clear identity last season, especially at White Hart Lane. They had that fabulous, I think they won, I think they won every game bar 2. They drew 2 and they won every other game going. Fantastic performance at White Hart Lane. It's almost as if this season they're struggling a little bit with an identity at home. I mean, some games they're fantastic and other games they're not. You expect them to kick on. I'm less scared of Spurs this season than I would have been last season, to be honest. Us playing at Wembley, I think that plays to our advantage. I don't think it's going to be a place we're going to go and fear. It's going to be a place we're going to be really up for, somewhere where we can get the best out of our players.
Yeah, I agree. I go back to your point about Eriksen. I think that's a good point. Against Saints, when Ali was breaking forward, it doesn't have that guile that Eriksen can go and find Kane with. And I think that when we talk about England and we talk about how we should set up there, Ali off Kane, that should work. But there's not much creativity there. So
what is Ali for me? Ali, he's not a striker. He's not a number 10. He's not a midfielder. He's just sort of someone who like floats in and around that area. But sometimes when he's playing really well, he's fantastic. But sometimes I think, for Tottenham's point of view, he links up well with Kane. But I don't know. I find it a strange pairing sometimes, because it's not that he doesn't score enough goals, he doesn't assist. It's almost, I don't know. Sometimes he seems a bit lost, like he's not doing anything else in the game. Like I said, if Eriksen's not pulling the strings, or if somebody else is not doing something for them, then they just seem to lose that ability to create chances. Ali's like a poacher behind a poacher. To me, sometimes I think they need something like an Eriksen, a bit more creative. And if he's not there, as Nick rightly said, they seem to break down and not create much.
And Joe, then, so you mentioned it in our last segment that you don't think Sanchez will play against Yeovil. I think he will play, but I don't think he'll start against Yeovil. So do you think his first start will be at Wembley against Spurs then?
Yeah, I do. I think Jose will be looking to sort of use his signing, get that bounce, use that momentum, and get him involved in such a big game. He's a big game player at the end of the day, isn't he? And he's going to want him on the pitch, I think. And I think, regardless of what happens at Yeovil, I don't think he will feature. If he does, as you said, he'll be off the bench. But yeah, I fully expect him to be in from the start for that one. And as we sort of talked about right at the beginning when we started on Sanchez, I think he'll play sort of across that front line, whether it be 10, whether it be actually up top on occasion when Lukaku's not in, or the right hand side. But I think he'll start on the right hand side against Spurs.
Yeah, and I agree. I do think Mata will probably be the one that misses out. And one thing that Jose has done, particularly at United, is whenever we make a new signing, or whenever someone comes back from a layoff or a suspension, they tend to go straight back in the side. I'm thinking when we signed Pogba, didn't have a pre-season, straight in the side. Ibrahimovic straight in the side. Eric Bailly straight in the side. And I just can't see him hanging about with Sanchez. I do think he'll be in sooner rather than later. It's not like, say, when Klopp signed Karius and it's taken him 18 months for him to decide. He still doesn't know if he's number one. Like, Jose will put in these new signings. So I think it's
Apart from Mkhitaryan and Lindelof, they didn't quite have the same.
Yeah, Sanchez has got pedigree, doesn't he?
That's what I mean. I think I agree with you. I think he's a bigger character. He's coming into a team where he's already played in the Premier League for a number of years. So I agree.
I think you've got to take your chance though, because Mkhitaryan played in that Manchester derby last year and was subbed at half time, and he obviously saw something he didn't quite like. And Lindelof, I still don't quite know what the long term plan is there, because it's not as if like Jones or Smalling are retiring. Like, I don't know about Lindelof, but I guess that's a story for another day. But in terms of Spurs away next Wednesday, as long as we don't get beat, I would take a point now. I would take a point now, and I think it would secure top four. But it's a big, exciting game at Wembley, and I'm not sure if Spurs are on top form. So maybe there's something.
Quite a few.
I think they're there for the taking. I think. Yeah, worst case, we don't want to get beat, but I think they're there for the taking. I don't really want to finish below Chelsea or Liverpool at this point. I think, we're thinking about trying to win this league. Obviously, that seems out of reach, but I don't really want to start slipping down second to third or fourth. So I want us to carry on. We don't look like we ain't conceded a goal for 5 games. Let's set up defensively or solidly as we normally would do, but use some of those attacking talents that have been in good form recently: Martial, Lingard, and obviously now Sanchez. So, I think let's
I think they'd be more worried about our attacking options than we would be about theirs, to be honest.
Yeah,
so I think
at this moment in time. Yeah, agree.
Yeah, I think Alderweireld being out for them for so long has been a massive disadvantage to them as well. And I just think with Spurs this season, it's almost, they'll look absolutely out of this world for 3 games, and then they won't turn up at all for 2.
Spurs,
and in that cycle, with a second of that.
Tottenham,
so that's what happens.
Lads, it's Tottenham. Okay, so we haven't done this for a while then, so let's get some predictions. Joe P, let's start with you. How do you see this going?
I think it will be an open game. It's a massive pitch at Wembley. I think we'll win 2-1.
Orlando?
Yeah, I agree. I think we'll win 2-1.
Mark, anything different?
1-0.
1-0.
1-0 United.
1-0 to the United.
Yeah.
I think it'll be 1-0. I'll sit on that fence.
Masood. John Phillips, London. I have two myself.
Okay, welcome back, part 5, and my personal favourite segment of our podcast is the Premier League Roundup. So much has been happening, and obviously we won't go into every single thing. So many games, so many competitions, and we're in the smack bang in the middle of the transfer window as well. Let's start off. Obviously, the biggest in terms of money deal of the transfer window has been Coutinho leaving the Barcelona. Was always going to happen. I was quite surprised at the timing. What's your take on the deal?
I think it's a shocking deal. To be honest with you, I think it's for a club to let a player like that go at that time of the season. I think you just need to put. It wouldn't happen at another club. I could not see that happening at United. I couldn't see it happening at City. I just have no reason for them to go, you know what, we'll let you go in the summer. We will let you go in the summer. We'll agree, we'll shake hands and let you can go in the summer.
Like Ronaldo.
Like Ronaldo, but we're in the Champions League. We need to fight for top 4. Honestly, we'll let you go in the summer, but you're not going in January. Why does he need to go in January? What is it so urgent that he needs to go in January? Is he going to get straight in the side? Arguably, yeah, he should do. But what if he goes there, doesn't quite hit the ground running, and all of a sudden he finds himself on the bench coming on 20-minute cameos? Affects his
World Cup, yeah.
Exactly what I was going to say. It affects his ability to get into the World Cup squad. So for me, financially for Liverpool, yeah, great. I think it's sort of great amount of money, and I think the fact that he's got an Eno and he's a Brazilian added a good 50 mil to his price tag, because when you compare him like for like with other people in the Premier League, his record isn't the best, but he's a flamboyant player, good on the eye, and he's a fantastic player. But yeah, to go back to my original point, I think it was poor business to do purely on the timing from Liverpool's point of view, but couldn't really care less because it's Liverpool.
At least they can now sign got some money in the bank, so they can go and buy a
but are they
centre half.
Is that going to be, is the money already taken up from the Virgil van Dijk deal? Is that they've got the stadium that they're going to be building? What if it comes to the summer and they don't reinvest that money? The fans aren't going to be happy. All of a sudden they've pocketed 70 mil towards the new Anfield and the other 75 for Virgil van Dijk. So yeah, for me it was a strange deal. If it was United and we had sold a player of equivalent value for the same thing in January, I can't say I'd be very pleased.
Not in January. I think that's the key. Sell him, yeah, of course.
I think Carragher said something very similar as well. So
the big boys will eventually get the big boys. Real Madrid always get their man.
There's a what's the term I'm using for? There's a pecking order. There's a I was going to say circle of life, but it's not the circle of life I'm looking for. Food chain, yeah. Not the circle of life. That is, of course, Lion King. So, rolling the clocks back a week, Liverpool beat City, a thoroughly enjoyable game.
Brilliant.
And obviously the talk is, we sold Coutinho, Virgil van Dijk didn't play, everything's rosy. Comes to last night, or 48 hours ago, against Swansea. Van Dijk's in the team and it's a 1-0 loss, Mark. Van Dijk, good business, bad business? I like the lad.
I think he's good, and I think he will come good. I saw him against Everton in his debut. I think that was FA Cup game, and he looked to have added something to them. Obviously, he got the winner from a set piece. When I watched against Swansea, and Liverpool conceded a goal from a set piece, I thought, what's going on here? I thought, this is the guy not going to solve that problem with one guy. There's more to a defence and one centre back, but I just thought it was, as a United fan, I thought it was quite amusing that £75 million worth of centre back and they concede from a set piece and get beat at Swansea, undoing that good work from the City game.
Yeah.
But it's what they needed. I still think they're another centre back short, and a keeper short. Not sure the left back that have got a proper answer for that. The right back, I think they need to get Klein back because Gomez has got prospect, but he's not.
He's made some shocking.
He's going to end up as centre half.
Yeah, he's made some really bad decisions. And I think the Liverpool performance against City reminded me a little bit of when Arsenal really took it to Spurs in the derby. You know, they really got up for it. They outplayed Spurs and they were brilliant. And then that was like their cup final. A little bit like Liverpool. You know, they played fantastically well against City. Still nearly managed to throw it away. Give them another 5 minutes, they probably would have.
I think it would have.
And then they go and do that. So you know, they get again, you know, praised and lauded for those great performances, but then go and lose to a Swansea. So you know, as a United fan, would you rather those performances and then lose to a Swansea, or maybe we get criticised for what we do and win 2-3 4-0 every other week, but you know we're playing boring football. So for me, keep it coming as a United fan. I'd much rather that consistent level that Jose's brought us than, you know, 1 week fireworks and another week, you know, damp matchsticks.
Damp matchsticks, okay. And JP, so over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Chelsea linked with Peter Crouch, Eastbourne Borough legend Ashley Barnes, Hightower from Police Academy, and
Jolly Green Giant.
Yeah, Jolly Green Giant, Jan Koller. They've all been linked to
Carsten
Chelsea.
Janka.
Yeah, Carsten Janka, and now they've settled on
Hans Gruber.
He wasn't at all. He was just a bad guy. And now they've settled on what seems to be Edin Dzeko and his left back pal from Roma. What's your take?
For me, it smacks of more sort of like, basically the way I look at it is Conte's transfer business is like, it's like a pot noodle or a roast dinner. Like, you know, you put the work in to get a player, you know, you can have to spend a lot of time preparing for. Well, Conte just seems to want anyone that's sort of readily available, and it's secondary sort of what their ability levels are. And I think it's a bit embarrassing for them, really. I mean, no disrespect, you know, these are players that have been good players to their level, whatever. Crouchy was international, but the desperation just to get anyone in, I just think it's shocking, really. There's no sort of long-term plan. I think it comes down to the fact that Conte knows that he wants to be off at the end of the season. So he just wants a big number 9 in. I half sort of thought about giving him a bell myself and saying, you know, you can play centre-back, but I've got a massive forehead and I'm quite tall, so if you want me in, I'm cheap. No transfer fee, but yeah.
I think the previous transfer bloke at Chelsea, Emenalo, was his name. I think his job description was stop Conte from buying lanky strikers.
Yeah.
That was it. And now he's gone. Conte's got free reins. He's just, you know, he's calling up Crouchy.
Yeah, it's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it, really, at the moment with Chelsea? I mean, this link from, it really is quite comical. I mean, I don't know what I'd make of it as a Chelsea fan. I mean, just to be linked with that is just really Mickey Mouse, isn't it, really?
But Edin Dzeko's not a bad player.
I mean, that's not bad, but the other
Dzeko's good.
Like, this could
Too good for the bench, though, I think.
Yeah,
if you're on the bench for Stoke, Peter Crouch, and you're on the bench at West Ham, Andy Carroll, because you keep getting injured, and all of a sudden you're coming in for Chelsea, okay, to be a squad rotation player, it doesn't really, you know, fill you with confidence, surely, as a Chelsea fan. You know, Morata can't hit a barn door unless it's straight in front of him.
But why do they want to replace
I don't
like
know.
for like? So they've gone, Morata's good in the air, but can't finish on the ground. Oh, let's buy another guy who's good in the air.
So there's a theory about Morata that he's already played more games this season than what he has ever played in a season.
Right.
So he's
burnt out.
He's burnt out already. And he's never had to play through Christmas before. You know, I mean, it's all wherever he's been. He needs a week or two off. So who better to call on?
It was basically a glorified substitute, wasn't he? At Madrid
and Juventus at times as well.
Yeah.
I still think Morata is a class out. I do like him.
Yeah,
He's just
I like
gone
him
off the boil, and I don't think Dzeko will be a bad signing, but. It always just comes down to me. Chelsea's transfer policy is this spells the end of Batshuayi because he'll be part of the deal. So why buy him in the first place? Mm-hmm. Why not give Tammy Abraham a run?
Yeah,
it's the same with the Barkley one. 15 million for a young England international. That's the positive. But you already had a young England international in Ruben Loftus-Cheek that you've put out of Palace.
Yeah. And Chalobah at Watford.
It's just a strange. Transfer policy, but never mind. So also going on away from transfers in the Premier League has been the managerial merry-go-round. Mark, let's start with you. Our old player Sparky, Hughes out at Stoke, Lambert in. What's your thoughts?
Well, the league table doesn't lie, does it? Worst defence in the league. I don't know. probably the right call. It seems like at the moment in the Premier League, if you're struggling, you sack your manager and you somehow get out of danger, you get out of trouble.
I think he had quite a few injuries, didn't he, for Stoke? Quite a few of their first team players, which didn't help him. But I
think let's not forget what he did at Stoke. I think he's got people like Shaqiri, Bojan, and those likes running around.
Three ninth place finishes, which was their highest ever position, unless of course it's But so Paul Lambert he's not the most exciting guy in the world, but he got off to a good start. Good win for him on the weekend.
I tell you what, it was a good bit of football as well. I watched. I can't remember if it was the first or second goal. There was a back heel. It was very nice. It was counter attacking. And the
Bam Juf.
Yeah, the tactics apparently Lambert had said was get the ball as quickly as you can to Shaqiri, and that is essentially what all they're doing. he is the guy that can unlock defences. He is the star man. Everything is revolved around Shaqiri. That's it. So we'll see how that one plays out, because I know Shaqiri had been linked with other clubs. It was at Bayern Munich.
Yeah, Inter Milan.
So he done his career in reverse, Bowl accounts.
Yeah, so
start the zone.
So I think he might have something, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
Okay, and I'm just getting breaking news in that Chelsea are now linked to Bam Juf. Right, so Orlando, another sacking. Marco Silva, a bit of a surprise or not?
No, well, no, I don't think it was a surprise.
Portuguese.
Yeah, I think it's ever since that Everton rumour, wasn't it? They were touting him to be, the next best thing. Could he do better than Everton? Should he stay? Should he go? What should he do? And then it just nosedived. I think he won 1 in his last 10, something like that, before he got sacked. He just, they went from, I think they were 4th or 5th at one point, weren't they? And then they just really have nosedived down the league table, and essentially they were in free for all. Put my teeth back in. They're in free fall. So yeah, he had to go. Not uncommon with Watford and the way that they operate with their managers. It is really the manager merry-go-round at Watford, and I think from him, he'll go on and he'll get jobs elsewhere. I wouldn't recommend him coming back straight away to the Premier League. I think he needs to go away and come back and prove himself again. But yeah, I mean, would it have been much different if he'd have gone to Everton? Would he have kicked on there and done something a bit like Sam's done? I don't know. We'll never know, as they say. But yeah, it was strange that after that he just really nosedived for him.
I think the big Sam at Everton's an interesting one as well, because I think he'll do okay, but he isn't currently.
He's in that Pulis bracket, isn't he? He's a stopgap manager. Like, when they bring him in for a period of time while they try and find the next best thing. It's like, he's never going to be somebody's long-term plan, it seems. He's in that Pulis and other managers where they get him in, secure the ship, right, what can we get in that's better, sort of thing. So, but, perhaps maybe he accepts that role nowadays.
Yeah, I just found the Silva one interesting because Everton apparently offered Watford 15 million compensation for Silva, which Watford said no to, and then sacked him and had to pay off the rest of his contract.
Yeah.
So anyway, bizarre. And Joe, finally, he's had a couple of good results, but the new Swansea manager, who seems like a nice enough bloke, Carvajal, is it too little, too late, or can he perform miracles with that squad?
I was looking at the table earlier on today, Nick, and I think if you look at it, just talking about Watford there being in free fall, I think they're 6 points off the relegation zone. They're in 9th. So, those numbers might be wrong, but it's something like that. And I think, there's a strong possibility they could get out of it. I think there's one of sort of 7 or 8 sides down there this season that could go down. Invariably in the season, there's 1 or 2 teams that look like they're doomed and sort of make a latest run for it and end up avoiding relegation. Having said that, Swansea not being able to put the ball in the net is obviously one of the biggest things. When you've got someone that can put the ball in the net, think of Sunderland a couple of years back with Defoe. I think that's a massive thing, and unless they go out and sort of do something in terms of signing someone that can score some goals, I think they will struggle. But I wouldn't back against them turning it around. I like that Carvajal. I think he's a good manager. His teams play well. I saw a bit of his Sheffield Wednesday side when he was managing them in the Championship. But another strange one, almost managers managing up when they've been sacked from clubs lower down. Like I mentioned Lambert, but also Carvajal was sort of sacked by Sheffield Wednesday and then hired by Swansea hours later. It's just sort of a bit of a shift in the way that things are normally done, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's a funny one, isn't it? Because Obviously, Carvajal wanted to get Sheffield Wednesday up to the Premiership, didn't quite get there, but now he's got a job with Swansea, who are probably going to get relegated, where his job will be to try and get Swansea back to the Premier League.
I think you're right.
Or
There.
he gets sacked.
You're right there, Joe. The points difference. Watford are actually 10th. Just having a quick look. The difference between Everton in 9th and Southampton, who are top of the relegation zone in 18th, there's only 6 points in it. Well, in fact, from bottom of the league, Swansea have got 20 points, and Everton are 9th with 28. So there's only 8 points between 11 places. So yeah, you're right. It is very tight in and around that area. 2-3 games of a bad run or a good run, and you can really propel yourself out of it, or find yourself in amongst it.
I think what's interesting for me is Palace and West Ham since the appointments of Hodgson and Moyes. I don't think the players available to those two clubs were ever that bad.
No.
But obviously, the previous management wasn't working for them, and those two guys have turned those fortunes around. I didn't realise that Southampton were in such a rot. 18th now.
And they're another team that can't score goals, Mark, as well.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because going back to your Swansea comment, Joe, I think they sold, was it Llorente and Sigurdsson in the summer? I don't remember anyone coming in as replacement.
They bought Bonnie back.
Bought Bonnie back in, didn't they?
Bonnie,
Bonnie, number 2, Bonnie.
And then
Bonnie's been pony this
Tammy
season,
Abraham and Renato Sanchez. It's nowhere to be seen.
For me, it's not a surprise that that's happened. I think Llorente and Sigurdsson were the only reasons that they didn't get relegated in previous seasons.
So just to round off this, then again another prediction. We'll start with you, Orlando. Who's your bottom three at come May?
Ooh. I do think that Swansea will be down there. It's tough. It is so close. I'm gonna put my neck out on the line. I'm gonna say Swansea. I'm gonna say Huddersfield. And I'm gonna say West Brom.
Fair enough. I don't think you have to worry about your neck, as I don't think we have many listeners from Huddersfield. Mark, yourself, what about your bottom three?
On the pure fact that Swansea can't score goals, they'd have to be down there. I'm worried for Southampton, or not worried, but I would be worried if I was a Southampton fan, for similar reasons. Again, you'd expect they've got too much quality to get relegated, but we have seen it in the past. I'm not sure about West Brom since Pardew's come in. Again, I think they've got at least a goal scorer in Rondon that might chip in and get them a few points.
If he stops breaking people's legs.
Yeah,
He's more of a big fridge, and he runs around the box bumping into people.
I've heard he's wanted by Chelsea.
Cool enough.
So yeah, Swansea, West Brom could be in trouble. And then, if purely on the basis that Stoke have got a new manager, they should be okay. Brighton have signed a striker. Newcastle got Rafa Benitez. Maybe I might tend to agree with Orlando on Huddersfield. They could be dragged down into it. But certainly a change is needed in some of these clubs to get out of this rot that they're in at the moment. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
And JP, quickly, your 3 tips for the drop?
I would go Swansea, West Brom and Southampton, I think, lads.
So as it is. And from my point of view, I reckon Swansea, West Brom, they're a couple of losses already from being down. And I fear for Brighton. I know we're on the south coast, but I don't think Brighton score enough goals, and I've said it since day one. It's a nice place to go. Like, if you need to go and get something from a place, you don't want to be going to Stoke on the typical Stoke Tuesday night game. You don't want to go to Huddersfield. You don't want to go to Palace or Bournemouth, them tight little grounds. I would like to
go
play
down to Brighton on the lanes.
I'd like to play at that Amex. It looks like a carpet. It looks like a nice stadium. I don't think they'll have the grit come what may. So those are my 3 tips. Don't put any money on that, listeners. Okay then, fellow Manx, last section then, and this is just to round up all other news United. Let's start with some real positive news. I mean, I know the game's gone all about money, but we are top of the revenue streams. We pipped Real Madrid by 1.5 million. Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's just when people are talking about transfer fees, how much we pay for players, blah blah blah, salaries. Just look at the money coming into the club. It's all relative. I think that is as much as you need to answer on any transfer fees. They were saying Sanchez, he's going to get paid £459 million per second. We're paying for his dogs to eat pedigree chum 400 times a day.
Yeah.
It was just people just pulling out numbers from everywhere.
Yeah.
And actually, we're paying money that we can afford to pay for the players that we want, based on the revenues that we're bringing into the club through various noodle sponsorship, printer sponsorship, whatever that may be.
Tractor deal.
Tractor. So it's all relative. If you've got the money coming in, you can spend it on what you want. And I think we've never had a problem with the fair play, FIFA fair play conditions. I think no problem. Happy. I think the only thing is we probably just need to start thinking about maybe stadium redevelopment or training ground or whatever that may be. Actually invest aside from the transfers and the salaries, because there's lots of new stadiums getting announced or plans announced for other clubs. So we don't want to get left behind there. Would probably be the only thing. New lick of paint on the Old Trafford roof.
Yeah. And I often do think if you don't have an official pillow partner, then you can't really call yourself a big club. JP, we saw a couple of weeks ago, club legend Ryan Giggs got the Wales management job, but wasn't greeted with fanfare, shall we say? Bit of 50-50 mixed reviews. What was your take on that?
Yeah, I think there's been a bit of banter flying around, hasn't there? Because obviously, Giggsy well known for not always playing the friendlies. In his defence, I have sort of heard on the grapevine that, especially in sort of the earlier days, Ferguson would sort of let Mark Hughes go off to Wales duty and tell Giggsy he couldn't. So, you're not going to argue with Fergie, are you, at the end of the day? So I don't think it's all down to him. On the flip side of that, I think he is a Wales legend. I'm really glad that he's got the opportunity to take a job, a sort of a high-ish profile job, and get to work as a manager. Because I think that the length of time he's now been out of it, he's been linked with endless positions. None of them have come to fruition. I think it was in danger of him sort of slipping out of people's minds if he was not going to take something soon. So, I'm pleased he's got the opportunity. As I said, a bit of banter flying around that. Who's going to manage the friendlies, because obviously he won't want to do them.
Yeah, I think it's a good move for him. I think it's a good one for him to go and cut his teeth on. I think taking a job of like Swansea or some of the other jobs that he's been rumoured to, they're not easy jobs. You're trying to save Swansea from relegation or one of these other clubs. Whereas Wales, if you don't qualify for the next tournament but you play the right way, are you going to lose much from that? Probably not.
Yeah, I found some of the criticism slightly harsh, because this seems to be the Wales way of recruiting, because they don't have the finances to go and get a big name, so they tend to recruit a former player like Gary Speed, Chris Coleman, obviously now Giggsy, Mark Hughes, first manager job in Wales.
Was interviewed as well.
Exactly. So obviously the banter flying around about the friendlies, and I think Giggs has probably shot himself in the foot with how he interviewed in some of the jobs, because it sounded as though Giggs had some sort of strange standards that clubs weren't going to adhere to. But I'm glad he's got work, because like Joe says, a good point. If he didn't get that job soon, he would have been forgotten about, because that next generation of former ex-players would just be round the corner.
Just be sat on the table at ITV with Lee Dixon and Ian Wright.
Yeah, exactly. And
I'd still like Giggs, if he is the one from yesteryear at United who would maybe come back in some capacity as a manager. I would like to see that at some point. If it's not Giggs, who is that going to be right now? Because they're not queuing up, are they? There's no one really available to come in as a club legend and manage a side. No one is ready for that at any point. So, I'm all for having that succession ready. Whether that's gigs, I'm not convinced. But I mean, this time will only tell.
Give it a Giggsy to the end of the season. And Orlando, finally, I found this one slightly strange. Phil Neville has been announced as the England's women's coach. And just to give you a bit of background before I let you sort of comment on this, because I know you're a massive fan of one, Fizzer, and two, the women's game. But apparently they sat round the boardroom and asking who should be the next manager, and someone jokingly said Phil Neville, and then they went, that's a good idea, and then Phil Neville was now number one contender. So your thoughts on Fizzer?
Well, I think I saw him in a quote next to Alexis Sanchez, as I've always wanted to manage the England women's football team. I'm sure it was his childhood dream like the rest of them. And within about 24 hours they delved into 6 years of his Twitter past, tweet number 126 about how he made some sly dig about women. So I mean,
about women making breakfast.
Yeah, something like that, which I think was utterly ridiculous, really. I mean, I think if I checked my last Twitter account, I think I've sent 4,000 tweets in my lifetime. I dread to think what some of the content of that must be. So I don't know why they don't just delete their Twitter account in the first place. But
lads, you want to see my Bieber? I thought I was two-pack.
MySpace, yeah.
Well, I think, funnily enough, FA have just come out with a statement on Phil Neville, and they said that
No
the
further
tweets,
action, wouldn't they?
the tweets were not by any means.
I
They
saw
wouldn't
it,
have
it
been
was
punishable
nothing,
by the FA.
That was nothing,
They
yeah.
also said that Phil Neville was on a special course with the FA of ex-players, who want to get into management, and there are other candidates that were originally in the hat pulled out. So I think it's a weird one for Phil Neville to go for. I don't think we've seen that.
I don't think there's any
happen
pressure
before.
in that job, there is there really? I mean, it's not a job that I think he's going to lose a lot of sleep over.
You ever
I mean,
going to
I've
go
watched-
from women's though, to men's, back
Well,
across to men's football?
I don't know how serious he was about
top
men.
job.
I mean, how serious is he about, his managerial career, to be honest with you? I don't think he must be, because the women's game, I mean, I watch a few women's games now and again, and I mean, especially the England qualifiers, I mean,
That makes one of us.
I'm trying to see if I can put this politely. It is really poor, the standard that they play against. The England football team is very easy for them. I mean, when you watch them, I think the last one I played was last time I watched them play was England versus Bosnia, I think, in the qualifier, and
Big game.
it was just so easy for them, England. And I think there's a real disparity between teams like England, your teams from Scandinavia, USA, and that, and then the rest. The difference is just huge. So they only really get tested once they go to a
US are the
tournament.
big boys, aren't they?
Yeah.
Germany maybe.
Well, big girls.
Big girls. Sorry.
Yeah, so I mean that to me is where you might get unstuck. How much technical ability they have to then try and get them coached to play a certain style of football, I don't know. But maybe that would be a good challenge for him to impose his style and what he grew up with in the Ferguson era. Maybe he can be the one to make that change. Maybe he can be the pioneer. If not, then he can always get him to do him some breakfast. I don't know. Where'd you put yourself in the changing room? That's what I want to know, to be fair. How'd you get along with that one?
Maybe tweet him and he'll tweet back. Who knows? Okay, so that rounds up our New Year's show of Southern Manx. It's been an absolute pleasure being back in the studio with the guys. Hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll be back roughly on or around the 7th of February. In the meantime, please check us out on Twitter, which is at Southern Manx, and also our YouTube channel, Southern Manx again. As always, don't be shy in your feedback and commentary. I can only put it down to the lack of comments that you are a bunch of shy guys. So please give us what you have got, because this is a free service and we love doing it. We love talking about Man United.
Donations welcome.
we love all the listeners. Seriously, I never thought we'd get one listener, let alone 104, only for YouTube to take that down to 56. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.